all are. My name is Melanie Mintz, and I'm the city's Community Development Director. And I'm not sure how many people are on now, but I know that we were expecting about 50 folks, so thank you so much for seeing this kind of short notice meeting and being able to participate. Let's see, somebody's calling and I'm going to have to decline. So thank you all for, El Cerrito is doing a really good job of sheltering in place, and we know how hard it is for everybody. So as you've all seen, there's very few cases in town. Town is very quiet. So thank you for all of that. If you have any questions, Aisha is going to show you where our COVID web page is. So if you have any questions about any other city services, garbage, recycling, if you see maintenance needs out there, we're trying to keep the town together as we're also trying to work mostly remotely. I saw that there's a whole range of businesses on this call, from hotels to personal services, vacuum shops, skate shops, restaurants. So thank you all for participating. You all have different numbers of employees. Some of you have stayed open, able to stay open because you've been considered essential, or you've figured out how to do takeout or do your business in alternate ways. And obviously some of you have shut down completely. You've seen all these sources. Hopefully you've accessed them via other ways, but we wanted to reach out to as local as we could get to the Small Business Development Center for the county to be able to try to kind of really create a bridge and a personal connection to the resources that are coming down from both the federal and state government. So Aisha is going to walk through just kind of both city resources so that you can reach out to Aisha or I with not only things related to this shelter in place and assistance that's available now, but ongoing. We want to be here as partners for you. So if we haven't met you, we probably have been customers for many of your businesses, but reach out with anything city related at any time. And with that, I'll pass it on to Aisha. Thank you for participating, and I hope you all are staying healthy and well.
Yeah, thanks, Melanie. Hi, my name is Aisha Shuri, and I'm a community development analyst here for the city of El Cerrito. Thank you again for joining us, and thanks to Blair for participating today from the Contra Costa Small Business Center, Business Development Center. Just a couple of quick housekeeping. Everyone's actually going to be on mute. Blair is going to give us some information in a few moments, but you will, if you look on your screen on your control panel and you click more, there's 3 dots to the very right. There's a chat box, and if you actually open that chat box, you can send a message to the entire group. So if you have any questions along the way, just start posing those in the chat box, and we will go through those. At the conclusion of the presentation, we will be following it up with an email with the additional resources. And if you haven't had a chance to check out the city's website, please do so, el-cerrito.org/COVID-19, and there is a resource page for local businesses and employers, and we have a resource guide there as well. So that is something that we'll be passing back out at the conclusion of the presentation. So without further ado, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Blair.
Good morning, everyone. I know this is a trying time. I'm talking to businesses about every 45 minutes these days who are needing help with disaster loans, economic impact of disaster loan, as well as the payroll protection plan. And I know how hard this is for everybody to be shut down, to have income restricted or lost. And I think as much as anything, your job and my job as well is to survive this time and get yourself back on track to thriving as we come out of this. And who knows how long that's going to be. The Small Business Administration and the federal government in general has made available a lot of money to help small businesses. The idea being to 2008 and 2009, when the federal government was somewhat stingy. This time, the idea is to flood the economy with as much money as possible, and keep businesses afloat and viable long enough to be able to get back to business and to spend the time that's going to be necessary to recover. So in that regard, the group that I work with, the organization that I work with, is the Small Business Development Center. The SBDC in Contra Costa County is one of 2,000 similar organizations around the country that the SBA sponsors and provides funding so that we can offer free consulting and training services to businesses in every county in the country. In Contra Costa, the SBDC is made up of about 15 of us who work with businesses, some like me, in a broad range of areas, especially finance, and others who specialize in anything from marketing to government contracting, international trade, and so forth. So what I'd like to do is take a tour through the slides that we have here on the programs that are available, and then we'll have some time for question and answer. And Melanie, would you be able to monitor the questions and maybe pose them in a fashion that makes some sense to you?
Yeah, sure. We can
Okay.
consolidate them. Like Aisa will go through the slideshow, and then we can consolidate the kind of the questions that are coming. Or yeah, great.
Yeah, I'll monitor the questions, Blair, so you can walk through the programs.
Excellent. Okay. So Small Business Administration, the federal government, is where a lot of this is coming from. I have to say that the SBA is in an unprecedented situation of being literally flooded with millions of applications for the funding that's available, as well as administer the payroll protection plan, which is now 10 days old and is a little bit like changing the tires on a car that's going down the road. Policies and procedures, are coming out every day, and interpretations of the law are ongoing. So to the extent that you might feel a little bit frustrated, we're just asking for your patience as we try and do everything possible to get money into your hands. So, shall we just begin going through the slides?
Great.
Do I have control of the slides?
I'm sorry, I'm going to open the slide for you. I will control them here on my screen. And just as a reminder to everyone, please ask questions as we go. I know while I'm opening the slides here, Blair, there was a question that you can maybe make note of, is who's still accepting the applications.
Okay, good. Okay, so the program that is available, first and foremost, is a deferral of your payments on any existing SBA loans that you have through December of this year. Now, these are various loan guarantee type loans, the 7A, the 504 type loans, and you'll want to talk with your lender about that. But basically, the SBA is going to pay for the interest on those loans to lenders along the way. And as well as the principal. And that includes any loans that might even be approved today. So it's current loans as well as new loans. And then there's continues to be available the 7A program, especially the express loan program for $25,000 that you can apply for through your bank. And then there's the Paycheck Protection Program and the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, which we'll talk about in some detail. Okay. Now, the Paycheck Protection Program is one that's intended to make available to you money for an 8-week period of time to pay your employees. And if you use that money to pay your employees, that loan is forgiven. And the accounting on that will occur in the latter part of the year. Now, the payroll protection plan loans are coming from banks. And you should first go to your bank to see if they are participating and if they're up and ready to work with you to take an application. Some of you may have experienced a point where, for example, Wells Fargo was up on Sunday, and by Monday they had so many applications that they closed their program down to any new applications while they, somewhat like a snake swallowing a rat, processed all the applications that were coming through. And they also hit a cap that had been put on them way back in 2008. Back when they were having some problems with bad loans and so forth. First and foremost, go to your bank. If you're unable to get a loan through your bank, either because they're not participating or because they're shut down, although if they're shut down and not taking applications, that tends to be momentary, maybe a day or so in delay. However, there are a number of lenders who are now taking loan applications for non-customers. Among them, and I have a short list here, Golden Pacific Bank, PayPal, Intuit, and Square are taking applications. And there are a couple of more. Let me go over here to my list. There are a couple of more that are taking. United Business Bank, California Bank and Trust are all taking loan applications at the present time. Also, there is an aggregator called Funding Circle. FundingCircle.com. You can go on. Now, when I say they're an aggregator, what they're doing is taking applications and then they're matching them up with participating banks. So there are now a reasonable number of alternatives. Lendistry, LENDISTRY.com is also taking applications, and there should be for you no cost for the application. There are some aggregators out there that are doing loans and they're charging money for them. You should not have to pay. So use an aggregator like Lendistry, for example, that is not charging a fee for you to take advantage of them helping you to get a loan. The application process is streamlined, especially if you're a bank customer, they already know you, and the amount of information that they need and want is not as extensive as you might encounter if you're not a customer and using a bank that's that you don't already have a relationship with. The payroll protection plan, again, is intended to be money available to you to pay your employees for an 8-week period of time, beginning with the day you receive your check. So it begins with the day that you receive your check. The loans are supposed to be processed in about 2 weeks. And that 8-week period of time then begins. You may pay your employees and they may not do any work. You may have them stay home. Or if there are things that they can do for you, certainly take advantage of that. The calculation of how much you're eligible for is based on your average payroll for last year. So if you take your payroll for last year, which includes you, by the way, and it also includes employees. If you'll take part of the application is that you take all of that as part of the application. You present documentation related to your payroll for last year, and the amount of money that you're eligible for is 2.5 times your average monthly payroll for last year. If you use 75% of that for payroll, you can use the other 25, and that includes vacation and sick leave and health care and so forth. You can use the other portion of it for mortgage interest, rent, and utility. But it's going to be important to segregate or to have your payroll records show that this money is being used for payroll purposes. So what I'm suggesting is that if at all possible, use this money for payroll and then use the other loan, if you get one of the other economic disaster loans, use that for your other expenses. Your lender is going to tell you what documentation they're going to want to see in order for you to be able to have a forbearance on the loan, not have to pay it back. They're going to tell you what kind of documentation they're going to want you to present them at the end of the year in order to justify your ability to be forgiven the loan. So each bank is going to be a little bit different in their application. Each bank is going to be a little bit different in the documentation that they want to see. Each bank is going to be a little bit different maybe in the kind of documentation that they want to present they want you to present them at the end of the year. But fundamentally, it'll be your financial statements and it'll be your payroll, especially if you're using a payroll payment system. That'll make it real easy for you to be able to account for your payroll and to be forgiven the amount of money that you're borrowing for the payroll protection plan. So, again, I suggest patience about this, but these loans should be coming to you fairly quickly, somewhere in the neighborhood of about 2 to 3 weeks after you've made your application with your lender, assuming that you've given them all the documentation that they need and they don't have to come back and ask you for more. But they might. Sole proprietors are eligible, and you'll be presenting your personal tax return and your Schedule C, but then LLCs and S corporations are also part of that. So if you're wanting more guidance on this, as the slide indicates, go to the Treasury Department website, home.treasury.gov/cares, and there's more information there. Also, if you want to talk to somebody at the SBA, I have an 800 number for you for that. That 800 number is 800-659-2955, or you can call our 800 number, which is, theirs, by the way, is open 24/7, and some people are telling me they have to call at 2 o'clock in the morning because the wait can be long. We also have an 800 number, which is 833-275-7232. That's 833-ASK-SBDC 275-7232. Or you can send an email to loans@asksbdc.com. That's loan@asksbdc.com. And you can get a specialist to help you. Now, one of the things that I'm doing, I mentioned all day, every day, is working with my clients. And if you're wanting individual help, you can become a client of the Small Business Development Center and get very targeted help with either your PPP loan or with the economic injury disaster loan, or with any other of the programs that are available, like the forgiveness. As well, as you begin to plan your recovery, if you're needing some help there relative to your business, that's what we do on a daily basis. We're a free business consulting service paid for by the U.S. Small Business Administration, supported by the state of California, and also by Contra Costa County, to help small businesses with all kinds of business issues related to recovery, marketing, including internet marketing, finance, and just about any business issue you can imagine. If you don't use all of the money for payroll or for your rent, the money that you get becomes a loan that is paid back at the rate of 1% over a 2-year period of time. So obviously you want to use as much money of that as you can for payroll to keep not only yourself paid, but also your employees. And there's no payment due for 6 months. It's 100% guaranteed to banks by the SBA. So the banks are not, don't have any exposure in the case of the payroll protection plan. No collateral required, no personal guarantee. It's money intended to keep the economy afloat and to help you pay your people and keep them around. Okay. Now, the other loan is the economic injury disaster loan. And this is a loan that comes directly from the government, from the Small Business Administration. It's a low interest loan, 3.75% for working capital for those businesses that have been economically impacted by the coronavirus. The maximum loan size is $2 million. The way this one is calculated is based on all of your expenses for last year. So if you take all expenses for last year, this is intended to be 6 months of working capital. So if you take all of your expenses for last year, divide it by 2, that'll give you the amount of money that you would qualify for. So if your expenses, total expenses, having nothing to do, by the way, with income, expenses for last year were $200,000, divide that by 2, you would be eligible for a loan of $100,000. And it's intended to pay for, as it says here, financial obligations and operating expense, fixed expenses, other payroll expenses besides the 2 months of PPP, accounts payable, whatever. Again, it's a direct loan from the Small Business Administration. Your business and personal credit will be considered. The loan is for a as I mentioned, is 3.75, and the term for repaying is anywhere from 15 to 30-year payment schedule. And the number of years depends on how much you end up borrowing. Smaller amount of money might be 15 years. Larger amount of money might be 20, 25 years, maybe even 30 years. The idea being to have as little impact on your cash flow as possible by you deciding to take on this obligation. It does require that each person who has at least 20% ownership in the business be part of the application, and there will be a collateral and personal guarantees will be required for this one, unlike the payroll protection plan. The documentation that you have to complete is fairly simple and straightforward. They've got an online application that is as streamlined a loan application as you ever see. What I suggest that you do in applying for this loan is to go to the SBA website and pull up the paper forms to see what you're going to need to have ready and in front of you when you go through the application. And the way to do that is to Google SBA disaster loans paper forms, and that will take you, then you'll have a chance to go to the SBA website and you'll be able to see the paper forms, which are the forms that, and the information that the SBA is going to want you to provide them in the application. And then if you have all of that, you can do everything that you need to do in one sitting because the way the application is put together. So if the paper forms see what it is that you need to collect and have in front of you, then apply online. When you apply, ask for the up to $10,000 advance if you want. It's probably going to take you 6 weeks before you actually get a check. In the meantime, if you're interested in getting up to $10,000 in an advance on that money, and it's really a grant for all intents and purposes, check the box that gives you the ability to request that up to $10,000. Now, the way that's calculated is on the basis of the number of employees that you had last year. So it's $1,000 per employee that you're eligible for, up to $10,000. So go ahead and request that, and you should be getting a check for that in about 3 to 4 weeks. Getting a check for the full amount is going to take about 6 weeks. You will get, and write down when you do your application, be sure to write down the loan number that they give you so that you will have that. Application is done for that particular loan, as is seen here on the slides, at the, back up, go back up, at the SBA website. So if you just go to the SBA website, you'll immediately be able to go to this. Also, we've got a really good website at ContraCostaSBDC.org. We've got a lot of good information, and we've got a direct link to this website. But the website is there at covid19relief.sba.gov/# and complete the application. Now again, that one is based on your payroll for last year divided by 2 is the ballpark number. Now the interesting thing about this one is you will be providing them with the application, a personal financial statement. You'll also be providing them financial statement information for last year You will give them permission to go to the IRS to pull your tax returns if necessary. And they also want some of your monthlies for last year. So get your financial statements from your bookkeeping system, from your accountant. And that's, why you want to go and kind of get this stuff together before you start, so that you don't have to fumble around and get this. So again, the two loans, I imagine people have lots of questions about these loans that apply to them individually. What I would say is, if you applied for the economic injury disaster loan before March 29th, and some of you did, some of you jumped on this right away. If you applied for the economic injury disaster loan before March 29th, you need to reapply. Their system crashed over the weekend. They put up a new system, and if you got a loan number beginning with a 2 instead of a 3, you need to reapply for the economic injury disaster loan. What has been said about that is that if in reapplying, you will not lose your place in line. It's all first come, first serve in terms of when you get your money. But it's been said. I don't have any direct experience with my own clients to say that this is 100% true. However, that's what's been told us by the SBA, is that you don't lose your place in line if what happens is that you reapply because you were jumped on it before March 29th.
That's great, Blair.
Those are some of this is that I'm giving you is based on my personal experience out here on the front lines, dealing with people and dealing with the SBA, and some of my suggestions on how to be as efficient and effective as possible in taking advantage of what's available to you.
Thanks for all of those details. We've got a couple of questions in the box. Just to let everyone know, we will be sending out the list of lenders that Blair covered early on. So please be out on the lookout for that. I'm going to go ahead and
let me say, as it relates to that in particular, every time we give out the banks that are doing this, that are taking loans for non-customers, it seems they get flooded and they hit their cap. So, you might have to call around, but it looks like now that PayPal is involved, and now that some of these aggregators are involved, one of the resources on the list that I gave you should be available to you.
Great. I'm going to go ahead and start with the question here. This particular question, Blair, comes from one of our nonprofit partners at Judo Studio. So the only loan that is forgivable is the PPP and not the EIDL, correct?
Yes and no. That up to $10,000 amount, which might be $1,000 if it's just you and your business, but it could be as much as $10,000 if you have 10 or more employees. That is an amount of money that you don't have to pay it back either.
Now, technically, this organization is volunteer run, so yes. Would they be eligible for an advance, even though their employees are technically volunteers, or can you get into that at all?
My understanding of that is that if you're not paying people, that they're employees, then there's no way to do a calculation related to making a loan. Now, that's not to say that you couldn't qualify for other financing from the SBA. And I've got if you'll bear with me, I'm going to leaf through my materials. I've got a particular website, if you're a nonprofit, that you can go to get good information. Small business development centers around the country are not permitted to work with nonprofits, but there's a California nonprofits.org that is a really good organization to check in with as a nonprofit. They're up to speed on all of this, and they specifically are working with nonprofits and the disaster loans, along with other things that they do as an advocate for the nonprofit. If you don't have any payroll, that's going to make it then hard to say. Now, that's not to say that for the PPP program, that's not to say that you potentially couldn't get an economic disaster loan, because you will have had lots of other expenses besides payroll to base getting one of the economic injury disaster loans. But the PPP, it's my understanding, there's nothing there to calculate payroll on in order to make that kind of loan.
Got it. So that's a great resource. We'll be sure to include that. We have another question. My wife owns a beauty salon with one employee and herself.
Yeah.
So for her, is PPP the right loan?
Well, I would say both are, and you can certainly apply for both. But PPP would give you then, in this particular case, both your would give you give her the ability to apply for a bank loan based on last year's payroll, divided by 12. That becomes your monthly payroll, times 2.5. So the answer to that is yes. If you were an owner and taking draws, if you accounted for it in your bookkeeping system, that's okay. If you if you had payroll yourself, all owners and all employees would go into the calculation of the amount of payroll for last year, and then the monthly average times 2.5 is what the loan amount would be. But I would do both if it were me, and if I needed the resources of both loans to keep things going.
Great. I have another question related to PPP. And it sounds like it's primarily geared towards more of our sole proprietor freelancers,
Yes.
and maybe people who don't maybe have a payroll per se.
Right.
How does this all work for in kind of that documentation and accounting of that?
Understand. Now for sole proprietors, report their business income and expenses on their personal tax return on Schedule C. The amount that you would be eligible for there would be the amount on line 31 in your Schedule C on your personal income tax return. So if you have reported and you have used the Schedule C as a sole proprietor as a way of reporting your business income and expenses and any profits that you had, that would be the document by which a PPP loan would be calculated.
Got it. Thank you for that explanation. Very helpful. I have one more question related to PPP, and then next I'll have one for the economic injury disaster loan. In this scenario, our chamber has one employee and plus the monthly rent expense.
Yeah.
It sounds like the chamber would be able to submit an application for PPP. Actually, it has been submitted, but those expenses should qualify in consideration with the one staff member plus the monthly rental expense.
Well, actually, it would be all of your expenses for the disaster loan. It would be payroll expenses plus rent, yeah, for the PPP loan.
Great.
Yeah.
Is there a prepayment penalty for the EIDL?
No.
Great.
And no application fees.
And no application fees. Great.
So, you know, if you think you might qualify for it and you want to take advantage of it, apply. You know, and what'll happen is if there are any questions, a loan officer will call and, you know, ask for more information or have questions, and ultimately make a decision. But it's an interesting thing. The documentation that you generate, that you provide, kind of goes into a black box, and it's got an algorithm and it spits out a number. And that's the number then that you would be eligible for. There is an appeals process if you want to do an appeals, because a lot of people have extenuating circumstances that, you know, that the application, because of its streamlined nature, really doesn't give you a chance to explain certain things that might otherwise be properly taken into consideration, you know, with the number that comes out of the black box. So, you know, go ahead and apply, see what happens, take advantage of the advance of up to $10,000 because it's a grant. It doesn't have to be paid back. And again, if you need help with any of this or want to talk about specific details, all you need to do is become a client of the Small Business Development Center. You'll be assigned to one of us who are working on this with people on a day-to-day basis. They're having, we get twice a week updates, so we're as up to date, I think, as can be accomplished in order to understand exactly what the fine points of all this are.
And Blair, can you remind us how you can subscribe to become a client, just to let people know that again, outside of obviously the phone number?
Absolutely. The way to become a client is to go to our website, which is Contra Costa SBBC.org. That's Contra Costa Samuel Boy Dog Cat.org. And right at the bottom of the first page is a place where you can request service. It's a short application, and then you'll be assigned to one of our advisors, and we'll be able to jump in with you on this or any other business issue that you might have. So it's a free service. A lot of people don't know about it because we don't have a marketing budget, but certainly take advantage of it during this time.
Yeah, and you guys, thank you so much for your partnership, are listed on our resource guide, and we really appreciate. We know that this is a very chaotic time, and a lot of programs are needing to be kind of just thought through on the fly. So we know that through those kind of twice a week updates that you receive, staying in contact with a business advisor is the best bet. So really engaging, and then of course taking into consideration the application is streamlined, but everyone's situation might have some nuances, and so keeping that in mind, that things are appealable. I'm going to ask you one last question, and then we can wrap up. I think you might have covered this, but can you, for businesses that use contractors, they can apply for PPP, but that is going to be kind of that Schedule C scenario that you mentioned, right?
Now, PPP does not take into consideration your independent contractors and your 1099 people. 1099 people, however, and their payroll, their expenses will be taken into consideration in the economic injury disaster loan. So that's part of your total expense base would be, you know, money that you pay to anybody who does work for you. But the PPP program in particular is for owners and employees, but not for independent contractors, not for 1099 people.
Got it. So really the goal of the PPP is for people on payroll existing, and that term payroll literally means more to type of employee.
That's correct. Now, that's not to say that your 1099 people, the people who might work for you on a 1099 basis, couldn't do their own application, then they should.
Right, right.
But that would be up to them, and the fact that they've got a separate independent business from yours. They would want to make their own application for that.
Great. Before we go, any last thoughts just on, I know that the SBA is very much, the Small Business Development Center is very much aligned with the SBA programs. Are there any kind of other non-government programs or thoughts about any other initiatives out there that you feel that the group might benefit from? Someone brought up the $10,000 program through Verizon, but just kind of if you have anything that you think might be worth sharing or thoughts on that.
One other thing is that the state of California is trying to come up with some alternatives for those people who don't have access or don't qualify for the PPP loans. So there's an organization called the iBank that is similar to the SBA for the state of California, in that they have loan guarantees as well. And so the iBank is, and you can go to, I'm not sure.
We have it actually in our resource guide, so I'll send that out to all the participants at the end of the call. But yeah, it's right here. It's ibankca.gov.
Yes. Right. Right. So they're also stepping up, as your note here says, $50 million for businesses that may not be eligible for the federal relief program, including undocumented communities and low wealth individuals. So if you or anybody that you know is in business and doesn't qualify for the SBA program, they should at least explore the iBank as an alternative.
Great. Well, that looks like we have everything done. Everything for our questions have been answered. We want to, again, thank you very, very much again for taking the time today to spend this time with our small business community and really, provide some more personalized information as we understand things are changing. And so thank you everyone once again for your time. We'll send all of these resources out with the meeting summary. And again, we encourage you to reach out to our partners at the Contra Costa Small Business Development Center. And Melanie, do you want to add anything?
I have one other thought for you that I'd like to offer.
Yeah.
Just on a personal basis. We've been talking about business and how to keep the business afloat, but then there's also your personal situation. Check with whoever has your mortgage about whether they're going to be offering you a 90-day waiver of having to pay your home mortgage payment. Also check with your landlord if you're renting. Also, credit card companies are offering the ability to waive paying off credit cards for up to 90 days. I still have a loan for my son, for his college, and they're waiving paying back on student loans for I think 6 months. So another way to kind of conserve cash is to see what your lenders, personal lenders, might be willing to do as well.
Yeah, and on that note, yeah, the city also has some information in terms of a lot of evictions and foreclosure proceedings in general, as has been all over the news, have been suspended. But as Blair mentions, it's really important to get in touch with your creditors and your lenders and really having these conversations. I know we're all busy, but yes, your stability and your financial security is definitely important. So again, we'll include some resources when we send that out. If you want to get involved with the city's economic development efforts, after this is kind of all settled, just kind of want to put it out there. Our economic development committee is recruiting, and Jennifer Pete is our economic development committee chair. So when we send out these resources, we'll just kind of send you out that as well. I know a lot is happening right now and it's a lot of information, but again, hopefully these will be things that you can use, immediately and just down the road as we kind of make our way through recovery all together. Melanie, you have any?
Yeah. I guess I just really want to thank you as well, Blair. Your knowledge kind of across all of this is really, really helpful. And I hope it was helpful for people to hear it specifically and the specific resources you provided. And importantly, when we get past this, I also hope that maybe some of our small businesses will become small business development center members clients if they aren't already. I think that the entrepreneurs in this town, we really appreciate what they bring to this town, and as a small city, being able to link to resources like yours is really important. So thanks a ton for being willing to do this with us. I know you're back-to-back meetings with businesses right now, and I hope that you get a few more El Cerrito businesses to kind of help navigate through these programs and, as you said, others at various times. So as they're growing or, yeah, go ahead.
Happy to do so.
Great. Thanks all. And again, to all the businesses that are still on the call, please reach out to Aisa or me if you have any questions or any needs that weren't touched upon here that you think would be helpful to talk to us about, or anything else about what's going along on San Pablo Avenue or any of the other things. And thanks also to the Chamber for helping to get the word out. Lisa, the Chamber manager, is on the call, as is, I believe, John and some other Chamber board members. So let's keep working together to kind of to keep this sector and your businesses a really vibrant and vital part of the city.
Thanks
all.
Thanks everyone.